The Watts family murders. Christopher Lee Watts was born on May 16, 1985, in Spring Lake, North Carolina. He was raised in Fayetteville, North Carolina, by his parents Ronnie Watts and Cindy Watts. He had one sister named Jamie Lynn Williams. According to family descriptions, Chris was a reserved and introverted child. He struggled with social interactions and preferred to keep to himself. His sister Jamie was described as the social member of the family, while Chris was quiet. From ages 5 to 17, Chris participated in sports. He attended Pine Forest High School in North Carolina, where he excelled academically and received a scholarship to continue his education. Chris's relationship with his father Ronnie was significant. His father was described as unemotional in his manner, which influenced Chris's own emotional development. From an early age, Chris developed a habit of seeking approval from others and avoiding conflicts. He believed he should always be kind, helpful, and available. This people-pleasing tendency led to him being praised as an exemplary child. However, this came at a cost. Chris often avoided disputes, preferring to let others take control and resolving issues on his own rather than through confrontation. After completing his education, Watts became an operator for Anadarko Petroleum, an oil and gas company. He had no criminal history prior to 2018. The only legal issues the Watts family faced were civil matters related to debt. Shanann Catherine Razuchek was born on January 10, 1984, in Aberdeen, North Carolina. She was the daughter of Frank Razuchek and Sandra Razuchek. She had a brother named Frankie Razuchek. Shanann was described by those who knew her as ambitious, outgoing, and determined. She always wanted to be a mother. According to her family, Shanann was a woman of love who loved God, her family, and her friends. She was a woman of determination who had dreams to be fulfilled and worked toward those dreams. She wanted to make a difference and to be an exceptional wife and mother. Shanann suffered from lupus, an autoimmune disease that required ongoing medication and medical management. Despite this health challenge, she pursued her goals with determination. Shanann worked as an independent sales representative for Lavelle, a multi-level marketing company that sold a wellness product called Thrive. She worked from home, which allowed her to be present for her children. While earning income. Shanann was very active on social media, particularly Facebook, where she frequently posted about her family life, her work, and her children. Chris Watts and Shanann Razuchek met in 2010. They were married on November 3, 2012, in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. Following their marriage, the couple relocated from North Carolina to Colorado. In 2013, the couple purchased a 5-bedroom home at 2825 Saratoga Trail in Frederick, Colorado, for approximately $400,000. Frederick is a small town about 27 miles north of Denver. The home was in the Windham Hill development. On December 17, 2013, Shanann gave birth to their first daughter, Bella Marie Watts. Bella was nicknamed Bells by her family. On July 17, 2015, their second daughter was born, Celeste Catherine Watts. She was nicknamed Cece by her family. According to the family obituary, Shanann was excited to be able to have another child because of her battle with lupus. Every moment with Celeste was a blessing. Shanann was an attentive and loving mother. She frequently posted photos and videos of her daughters on Facebook, documenting their childhood and family activities. Despite their combined income of approximately $90,000 to $100,000, the Watts family experienced significant financial stress. In addition to their $3,000 monthly mortgage payment and $600 car payments, they had accumulated credit card debt, student loans, and medical bills. Their monthly expenses totaled approximately $4,900. In June 2015, the couple filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy protection, claiming liabilities totaling nearly $450,000. The bankruptcy was granted, but financial pressures continued. In July 2018, the Windham Hill Master Association sued the Watts family for unpaid homeowners association fees, totaling $1,533. In spring 2018, Shanann discovered she was 15 weeks pregnant with the couple's third child. The family learned they would be having a boy. They planned to name him Nico Lee Watts. Shanann's due date was January 31, 2019. Shanann created a video announcement revealing her pregnancy to Chris. In the video, she wore a shirt that said, quote, "Oops, we did it again," end quote, and surprised Chris with the news. His response was captured on video, quote, "That's awesome," end quote. On Father's Day, June 17, 2018, Shanann posted a message to Chris on Facebook, saying, quote, "Chris, we are so incredibly blessed to have you. You do so much every day for us, and take such great care of us. You are the reason I was brave enough to agree to number 3. From laundry to kids' showers. You are incredible and we are so lucky to have you in our life. Happy Father's Day," end quote. From the outside, the Watts family appeared to be living the American dream. In June 2018, Chris Watts met Nicole Kessinger. Kessinger, age 30, worked in the environmental department at Anadarko Petroleum. She would see the operators, including Chris, on the way to the office refrigerator. One day, Chris stopped by her office and struck up a conversation. According to Kessinger's later testimony to police, their relationship began in June 2018 and became physical in July. Chris told Kessinger that he was in the process of getting a divorce from his wife. He indicated he was finalizing financial details. Kessinger was unaware that Chris was still living with Shanann and that Shanann was pregnant. On July 25, 2018, Chris Watts searched online, quote, "When to say I love you for the first time in a new relationship," end quote. According to the 2,000-page discovery document released by the Weld County District Attorney, Watts told Kessinger how smitten he was with her through multiple texts, calls, and notes. He indicated he was on his way out of his marriage. Kessinger later told the Denver Post, quote, "He made me believe that he was doing all of the things that a rational man and good father would do," end quote. Throughout July 2018, Shanann was on an extended trip to visit her family in North Carolina with Bella and Celeste. During this time, Chris's relationship with Nicole Kessinger intensified. When paying for dates, Chris typically used gift cards, possibly to prevent his wife from tracking his spending through credit card statements. He always paid with gift cards during their relationship. According to friends, during Shanann's time in North Carolina, she became concerned about Chris's lack of interest in her and the girls. Shanann and the children returned from North Carolina. Shanann sensed problems in her marriage. She confided in friends about concerns regarding Chris's behavior and emotional distance. On August 11, 2018, Chris and Nicole Kessinger went on a date. During this final date together, something changed. Instead of paying with his usual gift cards, Watts paid with a personal credit card. According to Kessinger's testimony, it was as if he had nothing to hide or nothing to lose. On August 13, 2018, at approximately 1:48 a.m., Shanann Watts arrived home from a business trip to Arizona. She was dropped off by her friend and co-worker, Nicole Utoft Atkinson. Shanann had been in Arizona for a Lavelle work event. Chris Watts was home with their daughters Bella and Celeste. According to later testimony, this would be the last time anyone except Chris Watts would see Shanann, Bella, and Celeste alive. In the early morning hours of August 13th, Chris Watts murdered his pregnant wife Shanann by strangulation. He killed her in their bedroom while their daughters were in the home. Chris then wrapped Shanann's body in a bedsheet. He carried her body to his work truck, which was parked in the garage. Chris placed Bella and Celeste, both alive, into the back seat of his truck. He then drove approximately 45 minutes to a remote oil field work site operated by Anadarko Petroleum, where he was employed as an operator. At the oil site, Chris removed Shanann's body from the truck. He buried her in a shallow grave near the oil tanks. Chris then murdered his daughters. He smothered 4-year-old Bella first, then 3-year-old Celeste. According to his later confession, Bella witnessed him killing Celeste and asked if the same thing was going to happen to her. Chris forced the bodies of his daughters through 8-inch openings into crude oil storage tanks at the site. The tanks were filled with crude oil. After disposing of the bodies, Chris returned home. Surveillance footage from a local 7-Eleven convenience store shows Chris Watts casually purchasing breakfast shortly after the murders. Later that morning, Nicole Atkinson tried to contact Shanann by text and phone. Shanann did not respond. This was unusual, as Shanann typically responded quickly to messages. Nicole knew Shanann had a prenatal doctor's appointment scheduled that morning. Nicole drove to the Watts home. She knocked on the door. There was no answer. Shanann's car was in the garage. All of her belongings, including her phone, purse, and car keys, were inside the house. The children's car seats were still in Shanann's car. Nicole became increasingly concerned. She called Chris at work. Chris told her he did not know where Shanann and the girls were. He said he had left for work early that morning, and they had been home when he left. Nicole called the Frederick Police Department. She reported Shanann and the children missing at approximately 12:10 p.m. on August 13, 2018. Frederick police responded to the Watts home. Officers arrived and began an investigation. They found Shanann's car, purse, phone, and medication inside the home. This was concerning because Shanann required daily medication for her lupus. Police contacted Chris Watts at work. He agreed to return home to speak with officers. Chris Watts arrived at his home at approximately 1:40 p.m. He spoke with police. He told officers he had no idea where his family was. He said he had last seen Shanann at 5:15 a.m. that morning when he left for work. He claimed they had an emotional conversation about separating the night before. Chris's behavior during the initial police interview raised concerns. He appeared calm and showed little emotion when discussing his missing pregnant wife and young daughters. A neighbor, Nathan Trinastich, told police he had security camera footage that might be relevant. Police reviewed the footage with Chris present. The video showed Chris's truck backing into the garage early on the morning of August 13th. The truck was then seen leaving the property. Chris was the only person visible on the footage. The video showed Chris loading items into his truck. When asked what he was loading, Chris stated he was loading tools for work. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation activated an endangered missing alert for Shanann, Bella, and Celeste on August 14, 2018. The case received immediate media attention. Chris Watts gave interviews to local television stations, including Denver 7 and 9 News. Standing outside his home, he pleaded for the safe return of his family. He said, quote, "Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. If somebody has her, just bring her back." End quote. Chris's demeanor during these television interviews struck many viewers and investigators as unusual. He appeared to speak about his family in the past tense. His body language and lack of emotion raised suspicions. On August 15, 2018, the FBI joined the search for Shanann and her daughters. Later that day, Chris Watts was brought to the Frederick Police Department for further questioning. During the interrogation, Watts maintained that he had no involvement in his family's disappearance. However, investigators had been examining his phone records and discovered evidence of his affair with Nicole Kessinger. When confronted with evidence of the affair, Watts initially denied it, then admitted he had been seeing someone at work. He claimed this had nothing to do with his family's disappearance. Investigators administered a polygraph test to Chris Watts. He failed the test. When informed of the results, Watts requested to speak with his father, Ronnie Watts. During a conversation with his father, Chris confessed to killing Shanann. However, he claimed he killed her after witnessing her strangling their daughters. He told his father that Shanann had killed Bella and Celeste, and he killed Shanann in a rage after discovering what she had done. Chris then confessed this same story to investigators. He agreed to lead police to the bodies. On August 15, 2018, Chris Watts was arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body. Police traveled with Chris to the Anadarko oil site. Chris directed them to Shanann's burial location. He also indicated which oil tanks contained his daughters' bodies. Recovery teams worked through the night. Shanann's body was recovered from the shallow grave. The bodies of Bella and Celeste were extracted from the crude oil tanks. The recovery process was extremely difficult due to the narrow, 8-inch openings of the tanks and the crude oil. Autopsies confirmed that Shanann died from strangulation. Bella and Celeste died from smothering and suffocation. The autopsy also confirmed that Shanann had been 15 weeks pregnant. The unborn child, a boy, was later named Nico by Shanann's family. On August 21, 2018, Chris Watts was formally charged with 9 counts. These included 3 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of murdering a child under 12 while in a position of trust, 1 count of unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 3 counts of MPERING with a deceased human body. Chris Watts was denied bail. He was held in custody pending trial. By August 21, Anadarko Petroleum had fired Chris Watts from his position. Investigators interviewed Nicole Kessinger extensively. She provided text messages, phone records, and details about her relationship with Chris Watts. Kessinger told investigators that Chris had told her he was separated from his wife and in the process of getting a divorce. She said she believed they were finalizing financial arrangements and still living together temporarily because of the children. Kessinger stated she had no knowledge that Shanann was pregnant. She said Chris never mentioned the pregnancy. According to Kessinger, on August 13th, the day Shanann was reported missing, Chris sent her a text asking to FaceTime. During that call, Kessinger noticed the sheets were missing from his bed. She found this strange. Chris was also fixated on her during the conversation, which made her uncomfortable. After learning about the missing persons case, Kessinger sent Chris a final text message. She wrote, quote, "If you did anything bad, you're going to ruin your life, and you're going to ruin my life," end quote. Kessinger fully cooperated with the investigation. She was not charged with any crimes. Investigators reviewed thousands of text messages between Chris and Shanann. The messages revealed increasing tension in their marriage. Shanann had expressed concerns about Chris's emotional distance. She had tried to work on their relationship. Text messages also showed that Chris had been Googling information about divorce and starting over. He had searched for anniversary gifts for Nicole Kessinger while still married to Shanann. The 2,000-page discovery document released by the Weld County District Attorney's Office revealed extensive details about the case. It included text messages, internet search histories, financial records, and witness statements. On November 6, 2018, in an unexpected move, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to all charges. He entered his plea at the Weld County Courthouse in Greeley, Colorado. By pleading guilty, Watts avoided a trial. More significantly, prosecutors agreed to take the death penalty off the table as part of the plea agreement. Colorado had the death penalty at the time, though it was later abolished in 2020. Watts pleaded guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of murdering a child under 12 while in a position of trust, 1 count of unlawful termination of pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body. However, Watts continued to maintain that he had killed Shanann only after finding her strangling their daughters. He did not admit at this time to killing Bella and Celeste himself. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for November 19, 2018. On November 19, 2018, Chris Watts appeared in court for sentencing. The courtroom was filled with Shanann's family members, friends, and community members. Shanann's father, Frank Razuchek, gave a victim impact statement. Through tears, he addressed Chris directly, saying, quote, "I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. They also trusted you, the heartless monster, and then you take them out like trash," end quote. Shanann's mother, Sandra Razuchek, spoke, saying, quote, "You're an evil monster. I will never forgive you for taking my family away," end quote. Shanann's brother, Frankie Razuchek, stated, quote, "You're a heartless monster. You're the reason I will never be able to see my sister again," end quote. During the hearing, prosecutor Michael Rourke revealed new details about the murders. He stated that Bella had fought for her life. She had bitten her tongue severely and had scratch marks on her body consistent with struggling against an attacker. Rourke stated that after Watts killed Celeste in front of Bella, Bella asked him, quote, "Is the same thing gonna happen to me as Cece?" end quote. Watts kept his head down during the victim impact statements. He did not speak. Judge Marcelo Kopkow sentenced Christopher Watts as follows: 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for the 3 first-degree murder counts. 2 concurrent life sentences without the possibility of parole for the 2 counts of murdering children under 12 while in a position of trust. 48 years for unlawful termination of Shanann's pregnancy, 12 years for each count of tampering with the deceased human body for a total of 36 years. The sentence totaled 5 life terms without parole, plus 84 years in prison. Christopher Watts, age 33, would die in prison. Judge Kopkow stated, quote, "This is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen." End quote. Following sentencing, prosecutor Michael Rourke held a press conference. He stated, quote, "We still don't have the answers," end quote, regarding why Watts committed these crimes beyond the affair. On September 1, 2000, ND18, funeral services were held for Shanann, Bella, and Celeste at Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Pinehurst, North Carolina. Shanann and her daughters were buried in North Carolina. Hundreds of mourners gathered to pay their respects. Thousands more watched via a Facebook live stream of the 90-minute ceremony. No one mentioned Chris Watts during the service. Father John Forbes stated during the service, quote, "Shanann was a woman of love. She loved God, her family, and her friends. She was a woman of determination. She had dreams to be fulfilled, and she worked toward those dreams. She wanted to make a difference. She wanted to be an exceptional wife and mother," end quote. On December 3, 2018, due to safety concerns, Chris Watts was transferred out of Colorado. He was moved to Dodge Correctional Institution, a maximum security prison in Waupun, Wisconsin. The transfer was ordered because Colorado Department of Corrections officials determined Watts faced security risks if he remained in a Colorado prison. The high-profile nature of his crimes and the fact that he murdered children made him a target for violence from other inmates. On December 5, 2018, Watts participated in a 5-hour interview from prison with investigators. During this interview, he recounted the harrowing details of his daughter's final moments. For the first time, Watts confessed to killing Bella and Celeste himself. He admitted that Bella witnessed him killing Celeste. He confirmed that Bella asked if the same thing was going to happen to her. Watts stated, quote, "This was like the epitome of being angry, the epitome of showing a rage, the epitome of losing your mind," end quote. In this interview, Watts admitted he had lied about Shanann killing the children. He acknowledged that he alone was responsible for all 3 murders. The Watts family murders became one of the most publicized cases in recent American history. The case received extensive coverage from news media, true crime programs, and documentary series. On December 7, 2019, Oxygen released a 1-hour documentary about the case as the first episode of Series 3 of their television program Criminal Confessions. On January 26, 2020, Lifetime released a film called Chris Watts, Confessions of a Killer as part of its Ripped from the Headlines feature film series. It starred Sean Clear as Christopher Watts and Ashley Williams as Shanann. Shanann's family was not consulted about the film and expressed outrage at its release. In September 2020, Netflix released a documentary titled American Murder: The Family Next Door, directed by Jenny Popplewell. The documentary used extensive social media posts, text messages, police body camera footage, and other archival material to tell the story. On a December 2018 episode of the ABC News series 2020, Shanann's parents Frank and Sandra Razuchek were interviewed for the first time since the murders. HLN aired a special report titled Family Massacre: Chris Watts Exposed, which included footage from police body cameras and security cameras in the police station's interview room. Chris Watts' parents, Ronnie and Cindy Watts, gave interviews defending their son and making controversial statements about Shanann. In November 2018, Cindy Watts stated in a television interview, quote, "It was a very hard relationship. It was a very hard relationship with Shanann as far as I'm concerned. I couldn't do anything right," end quote. The Watts family claimed their son changed once he met Shanann. They alleged that Shanann's relationship with Chris was abusive, and that she isolated Chris from his family. Cindy Watts stated she believed Shanann was more capable of killing the children than Chris. When asked if their son was capable of killing the children, Cindy Watts said, quote, "I would say she's more capable than Christopher. I don't see him capable at all," end quote. Ronnie Watts stated he believed Chris's initial story that he killed Shanann only after finding her strangling the children. In response, Shanann's family issued a statement saying, quote, "Everyone who knew Shanann knows this to be true. Even Chris Watts knows this to be true. Yet Chris Watts still chose to murder Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. Chris Watts still chose to dump the bodies of his own family in oil tanks. And Chris Watts still chose to lie about it until he could lie no more. He pled guilty to murdering his family because he is guilty." The parents of Chris Watts gave an interview in which they attempted to defend their son. In doing so, they felt the need to make vicious, grotesque, and utterly false statements about Shanann. Their false statements, however hurtful and inaccurate, will never alter the truth about Shanann, and will never alter the truth about the crimes committed by their son, Chris Watts. End quote. The house at 2825 Saratoga Trail in Frederick, Colorado, where the murders occurred, was foreclosed. In 2020, the home was sold for $600,000. A new family purchased the property. On November 19, 2018, the same day as Watts' sentencing, Shanann's parents, Frank and Sandra Razuchek, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Chris Watts. They were later awarded a judgment of $6 million. During a February 2019 interview from prison, Chris Watts told investigators he was remorseful for the murders and claimed he had found God. He stated, quote, "There was this one church service, the only one I've gone to in here, and the pastor said, 'You're not defined by one moment in your life.' And I think people are defining me by one moment in my life." End quote. As of 2026, Christopher Watts remains incarcerated at Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin, serving 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Plus 84 years. Watts is 40 years old. He will die in prison. According to the Wisconsin Department of Corrections, Watts spends his days at Dodge, working as a custodian. He largely keeps to himself. Over the years, Watts has received numerous letters from individuals, some proclaiming his innocence despite his guilty plea. In letters to correspondents, Watts has shared additional details about the murders, including claims that he had been planning the killings for weeks. The Watts family murders remain one of the most analyzed and discussed cases of family annihilation in American criminal history. The case has been studied for its psychological aspects, the role of social media in presenting a false image of family life, and the phenomenon of family annihilators who methodically plan murders rather than acting in impulsive rage. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico Watts are remembered by their family and community as victims of a husband and father who chose to destroy his family rather than face the consequences of ending his marriage. This has been the documentary account of the Watts family murders.